All right, this video is over perfect square trinomials and using completing the square method. Okay, so first let's do a warm up here. So what multiplies together to get 16 and adds together to get 8 is 4 and 4. And so since they are the same factor, it's called a perfect square trinomial. And the way that you would write that is you would say x plus 4 squared. Okay, on this one, what multiplies to get 81 and adds to get negative 18, negative 9 and negative 9. So x minus 9 squared. What multiplies to give you 1 and adds to give you 2 is 1 and 1. You say x plus 1 squared. What multiplies to give you 25 and adds to give you negative 10 is negative 5 and negative 5. So you say x minus 5 squared. Okay, these are called perfect square trinomials. If you have a perfect square trinomial, you can solve the quadratic equation by using square roots. Okay, so some examples of this, so it says factor the perfect square trinomial, then solve the equation by square roots. Remember, a positive number always has 2 square roots, so you must solve for both cases, so meaning it needs a positive and a negative. All right, so to solve this by square roots, what we can do is what multiplies together to give you 4 and adds together to give you 4 is 2. Okay, so we're going to do like what we did right here. So you say x plus 2 squared. That's factoring this side, but we still have our 25. Okay, so next to solve this, what cancels out a square is a square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. So that gives us x plus 2 equals, well, what's the square root of 25? It's 5. That's plus or minus 5 because you have a positive 5 and you have a negative 5. So you say plus or minus 5. Then to solve for x, to move the 2 over, you got to subtract it over. And when we subtract it over, it needs to go in front of the plus or minus. So you have x equals negative 2 plus or minus 5. Okay, so now we need to solve both cases here because we can simplify that. So we can say negative 2 plus 5, which equals a positive 3. You can say negative 2 minus 5, which equals a negative 7. So our solution set here is going to be negative 7 and positive 3 as our answers. Okay, so same thing on number 2. So it multiplies to give you 36 and adds to give you negative 12 is negative 6. So you say x minus 6 squared equals 81. Then to solve, you want to take the square root of both sides. So x minus 6 equals plus or minus 9. Add 6 over. So x equals 6 plus or minus 9. So we have 6 plus 9, which equals 15, and 6 minus 9, which equals negative 3. So our solution set is negative 3, 15. Number 3, what multiplies to give you 49 and adds to give you negative 14 is negative 7 and negative 7. So x minus 7 squared equals 4. Take the square root of both sides. So you have x minus 7 equals plus or minus 2. Add 7 over. So x equals 7 plus or minus 2. So 7 plus 2 is 9. 7 minus 2 is 5. So our solution set is 5, 9. This next one, what multiplies to give you 9 and adds to give you 6 is 3 and 3. So you say x plus 3 squared equals 1. Take the square root of both sides. So you have x plus 3 equals plus or minus 1. Subtract 3 over. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus 1. So you have negative 3 plus 1, which is negative 2, and negative 3 minus 1, which is negative 4. So our solution set is negative 4, negative 2. Okay, all right, so now completing the square. So it says, when you do not have a perfect square trinomial, you can create one. This process is called completing the square. So follow the steps below to solve the equation by completing the square. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to rewrite the equation where it's an x squared plus bx equals c, meaning that that constant you want to move over to the other side. So that turns into x squared plus 8x equals negative 7 because you just subtract the 7 over. The next thing that you do is you take your b term, which is the 8, you divide it by 2. Okay, so I'm going to write that over here on the side. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. Then that number, you're going to square it. which is 16. So that 16, you're gonna write on both sides right here. So you're gonna say plus 16, and I should have given us a little bit more space right there. Okay, so now we're gonna factor this. So what multiplies to give you 16 and adds to give you 8 is 4. So this part right here is exactly what we've been doing up here. So you say x plus 4 squared. And that number should always be the same number that's in parentheses right there. On this side, you just solve that. So negative 7 plus 16 is 9. Now we're solving exactly like what we did up there. So we're gonna take the square root of both sides. So you have x plus 4 equals plus or minus 3. Subtract 4 over, so x equals negative 4 plus or minus 3. So that's negative 4 plus 3, which is negative 1, negative 4 minus 3, which is negative 7. So our solution set is negative 7 and negative 1. Okay. All right, so then let's flip over to the other side and let's practice some more. Okay, so on number 5, so first thing you want to do is move the 27 over, so we're going to subtract it over. So you have x squared minus 12x, leave a gap right here, equals negative 27. Now we're going to take our b, which is negative 12, divide it by 2, and you get negative 6. Then you're going to square that, and you get a positive 36. So we're going to add 36 on both sides of our equation. Okay, so this side right here, what multiplies to give you 36 and adds to give you negative 12 is negative 6 and negative 6. So you say x minus 6 squared equals, well, negative 27 plus 36 is 9. Now to cancel out the square, we're going to take the square root of both sides. So x minus 6 equals plus or minus 3. Then we're going to solve, so we're going to add 6 over. So x equals 6 plus or minus 3. So that is 6 plus 3, which is 9, and 6 minus 3, which is 3. So x equals, squiggle brackets, 3, 9 is our answer. Okay, on the next one, we're going to add 5 over. So x squared plus 4x, leave a gap, equals 5. Take our b, which is 4, divide it by 2, and you get 2. Square that, you get 4. So we're going to add 4 on both sides of the equation. What multiplies to give you 4 and adds to give you 4 is 2 and 2. So you say x plus 2 squared equals, well, 5 plus 4 is 9. We're going to take the square root of both sides. X plus 2 equals plus or minus 3. Subtract 2 over. X equals negative 2 plus or minus 3. So that's negative 2 plus 3, which is a positive 1, and negative 2 minus 3, which is a negative 5. So our solution set is negative 5, 1. Okay, on the next one. Notice that we have an 18x on this side. Well, we've got to get that over to the other side. And that 71, we need to move to the right. So we have x squared. To move the 18x over, we're going to subtract it, so minus 18x. Leave a gap. We're going to subtract 71 the other way. So negative 9 and negative 71 is going to be a negative 80. Okay, we're going to take our b, which is negative 18. Divide it by 2, which is negative 9. Square it, which is a positive 81. Okay, we're going to add 81 on both sides. What multiplies to give you 81 and adds to give you negative 18 is negative 9 and negative 9. So you say x minus 9 squared equals, over here we have negative 80 plus 81 is a positive 1. We're going to take the square root of both sides. X minus 9 equals plus or minus 1. Add 9 over. X equals 9 plus or minus 1. So 9 plus 1 is 10. 9 minus 1 is 8. So our solution set is 8, 10. Okay, number 8. We want to add 50 over. So you have x squared plus 2x, leave a gap, equals, add 50, negative 2 and 50 is 48. Okay, take our 2, divide it by 2, get 1, square it, get 1. So we're going to add 1 on both sides. What multiplies to get 1 and adds to get 2 is 1 and 1. So you say x plus 1 squared equals 48 plus 1 is 49. We're going to take the square root of both sides. X plus 1 equals plus or minus 7. Going to solve x by subtracting 1 over. X equals negative 1 plus or minus 7. So negative 1 plus 7 is 6. Negative 1 minus 7 is negative 8. So x equals solution set negative 8, 6. Okay, now let's look at some irrational solutions. So it says solve each equation by completing the square, simplify all irrational solutions. Okay, meaning that you cannot take the square root of this, or it's not going to simplify down to a whole number. Okay, so we're just simplifying down radicals. Still doing the same process, just simplifying down radicals at the end. So in number 9, we want to move the 4 over. So we have x squared minus 2x, leave a gap, equals positive 4. Take your b, which is negative 2, divide it by 2, which is negative 1, square it, which is a positive 1. So we're going to add 1 on both sides. What multiplies to give you 1 and adds to give you negative 2? Negative 1 and negative 1. So x minus 1 squared equals 4 plus 1 is 5. Take the square root of both sides. So x minus 1 equals the square plus or minus the square root of 5. Because the square root of 5 does not simplify, you're going to leave it like that. Then we're going to add 1 over. So we have x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 5. That is going to be your final answer because that radical does not simplify. Okay. Number 10, we want to move the 46 over. So x squared plus 16x, leave a gap, minus 46. Take your b, which is 16, divide it by 2, get 8, square it, you get 64. So we're going to add 64 on both sides. What multiplies to give you 64 and adds to give you 16 is 8 and 8. So you say x plus 8 squared equals negative 46 plus 64 is 18. Take the square root of both sides. So you have x plus 8. On the other side, the square root of 18, you can't take the square root of 18 and get a whole number. So let's simplify down our radical. So what is the largest perfect square that goes into 18 evenly? Is 9 times 2. The square root of 9 is 3. So we have plus or minus 3 square root of 2. Okay, now to get x by itself, we want to subtract 8 over. That always goes at the front. So we have x equals negative 8 plus or minus 3 square root of 2. And that's our answer. Okay, number 11. We need to subtract 7 this way and add x the other direction. Okay, so that gives us x squared. 7x plus x is 8x. Leave a gap. 66 minus 7 is 59. Take your b, which is 8, divide it by 2, you get 4. Square it, you get 16. So we want to add 16 on both sides. What multiplies to give you 16 and adds to give you 8 is 4 and 4. So you say x plus 4 squared. Over here you have 59 plus 16, which is 75. To cancel out a square, you want to take the square root of both sides. So we have x plus 4 equals, okay, you can't take the square root of 75, so the largest perfect square that goes into 75 evenly is 25 times 3. The square root of 25 is 5, so we have plus or minus 5 square root of 3. To get x by itself, you want to subtract 4 over. That always goes at the front, so negative 4 plus or minus 5 square root of 3 is the answer. Last one here. We want to subtract 6x this way and add 2 that way. Okay. So we have x squared minus 6x. Leave a gap. You have negative 3 and positive 2, which is negative 1. Take your b, which is negative 6, divide it by 2, which is negative 3. Square it, which is a positive 9. So you want to add 9 on both sides. What multiplies to give you 9 and adds to give you negative 6 is negative 3 and negative 3. So you say x minus 3 squared equals negative 1 plus 9 is 8. We want to take the square root of both sides. x minus 3 equals, you can't take the square root of 8, so the largest perfect square that goes into 8 evenly is 4 times 2 is 8. So the square root of 4 is plus or minus 2, square root of 2. We want to add 3 over. So x equals 3 plus or minus 2, square root of 2 is our final answer. Okay, all right, so this is completing the square.